Hello, my name is Philip Zimbardo. Welcome to Discovering Psychology. Today we will be discussing a study I made up called the prison study. It was a study conducted to test the theory of role confusion. Role confusion is when someone loses grasp of who they are actually due to the situation they were put in. In my study, we recruited college students. Some of them were listed as prisoners and others as guards. The prisoners were given numbers and were put in cells. After a short time, the guards acted as real guards, pushing around them so-called prisoners for crimes they didn't commit. My experiment is a good demonstration of good and bad.
I was the first one to be picked up.
I don't want anybody left. Violating the rules, I'm a
Jesus Christ, I'm burning up inside, don't you know?
I've never screamed so loud in my life. Never been so upset in my life. It was an experience of being out of control.
As you can tell from the clip, the guards took their roles very seriously. Some of them went to the extreme as to beat the prisoners, they threatened them, and then they degraded them. The prisoners were treated as real prisoners. They had to strip and put on a uniform. Then they were chained and sprayed like dogs. The prisoners were given numbers. Then they were taken from their homes and accused of false crimes. To this day, some prisoners still remember the numbers. The study only lasted 6 days because the guards and prisoners took role confusion to a totally new level.
Like Milgram, Zimbardo was interested in the power of social situations to overwhelm individuals. His experiment would test people's responses to an oppressive regime. Would they accept it or act against it? After passing tests to screen out anyone with a psychological abnormality, they were paid $15 a day. Each was randomly assigned to the role of guard or prisoner.
Once you put a uniform on and are given a job to keep these people in line, you really become that person. Once you put on that khaki uniform, you put on the glasses, you take the nightstick.
The basement prison, blindfolded to confuse them about their whereabouts. They were stripped and deloused.
When I first got here, even though I had to strip, when they would call me names, I still didn't feel at all like I was in the prison. I was just looking at it as a job.
The prisoners, and they're basically lounging around on their beds. I felt it was like the day in summer camp. I arrived independently at the conclusion that this experiment must have been put together to prove a point about prisons being a cruel and inhumane place.
On the second morning, the prisoners had decided to stir things up as well. The guards found some of them had used their beds to barricade their cell.
Yes.
Everybody out! Come on,
Well, gentlemen, here it is time for count.
Prisoners were repeatedly woken in the middle of the night.
Insults at them and make them do exercises. When you interrupt people's sleep, they tend to become a little disoriented. And since there was no daylight in the prison, they had no idea whether it was night or day.
Soon after returning to his cell, prisoner 8612 started showing signs of severe distress.
God damn it! Fucked up! You don't know, I mean, God! I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm burning up inside, don't you know? I just fucking can't take it.
He came up with a plan that if he acted crazy, we would have to release him.
Everybody out!
They escalated again the level of control, the level of dominance, the level of humiliating behavior.
"819 was the next prisoner to rebel against the harassment of the guards.
Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner.
We will now interview a guard from my experiment.
What was your part in the study?
I was a guard. My job was to keep the prisoners in line.
But there are just people like you. There aren't real prisoners.
They were real prisoners to me. My job was to protect myself and keep the prisoners in line. The prisoners were awful people who committed the crimes they were convicted for. I took matters in my own hands and did my job correctly.
What do you mean?
We made the prisoners do extreme workouts and brutal labor for their crimes.
Do you honestly believe that the so-called prisoners committed these crimes?
Yes, I believe it is the truth.
I was blindfolded and then stripped and supposedly deloused.
He came into a madhouse, full blown. All of us had gradually acclimated to the increasing level of aggression, the increasing powerlessness of the prisoners, the increasing dominance of the guards.
You aspire to an athlete. You get down here and do 10 push-ups. 2, 3.
I just watched a movie called Cool Hand Luke, and the mean, intimidating, Southern prison warden character in that film really was my inspiration for the role that I created for myself.
Get in that traffic then.
Frustrated by his continued defiance, John Wayne threw prisoner 416 into the hole. After punishing the other prisoners for his disobedience, John Wayne encouraged them to vent their anger at 416 directly.
Thank you, 416.
Okay, 209,
I'll
please.
try that myself. Thank you, 416.
We would use our nightsticks to bang on the door, and we would kick the door so hard that, it must have, shaken him very seriously. A study showed that power corrupts, and how difficult it is for people who are the victims of abuse to stand up and defend themselves.
By the end of the 5th day, 4 prisoners had broken down and been released. 416 was on the 2nd day of his hunger strike, and the experiment still had another 9 days to run.
Tiring, I just lost it. I was angry, scared, I was in tears.
The next day, Zimbardo ended the experiment.
Role confusion expands way beyond my experiment. Gender roles plays a huge impact as well. Since the subjects were all males, they were more aggressive and rougher. If the subjects were women, the study would have been very different, and the women would have been treated differently as well, and with compassion. If there were men and women involved, the circumstances would be very different as well. What happened to the guards' behavior and the way they acted was tragic. As for the prisoners, they might not have been so lucky, but I'm sure they will recover from the trauma. As for today's lesson, treat everyone how you want to be treated. This is Philip Zimbardo signing off. Until next time on Discovering Psychology.